As they begin searching, Omni-Man suddenly hesitates, warning Allen not to move, his tone suggesting they may have uncovered something unexpected amidst the debris.
Nolan of Viltrum, give me one reason not to kill you where you stand.
In a twist no one saw coming, Space Racer, long presumed gone, emerged from the void, his sudden appearance enough to silence even Omni-Man and Allen. The weight of his presence spoke louder than any words, freezing both in place. Allen, breaking the tension with his usual dry humor, remarked, more to himself than anyone, that it was honestly crazy how Space Racer could go such a long time without eating. Welcome, Invincible fans, to another deep dive into the Invincible universe by Noir. Today we unravel issue 67, the equivalent of season 4, episode 2, where high stakes are about to explode. Stay tuned for the unraveling chaos. Omni-Man stands firm in the asteroid belt, facing Space Racer's demand with a calm defiance. The confrontation escalates as Omni-Man charges forward, landing a heavy punch on Space Racer. Space Racer cries out in protest, telling Omni-Man to stop, and in the struggle, his gun fires by mistake, sending a blast of energy that rips through the asteroid with a deafening force. Allen reacts quickly, jumping to avoid the beam as the asteroid begins to crack under the pressure, triggering chaos. Allen, sensing the danger, alerts the others that he can feel the asteroid breaking apart, its pieces colliding with the rest of the asteroid belt. He warns that this is sparking a chain reaction, one that won't end well. Omni-Man moves swiftly, grabbing Space Racer's arm tightly, while Allen rushes to assist in holding him. Together, they fly out of the crumbling asteroid field as the destruction spreads. Once clear, Omni-Man carries Space Racer while urging to move quickly with repeated commands. He glances back, still holding Space Racer, and declares that they've flown far enough to be safe. Space Racer speaks up, addressing Omni-Man directly, while Allen, confused, questions what Space Racer means. Before Allen can finish, Omni-Man is struck from the side by Space Racer's motorcycle, which he summons from a distance to break free. Allen stands shocked at the sudden attack, while Omni-Man, knocked aside, exclaims in surprise at what hit him. Space Racer, now free, levels his gun as Omni-Man recovers, pleading with him not to shoot and asking him to listen. Space Racer challenges Omni-Man, demanding to know what he could possibly say that would be worth hearing. Omni-Man stands nervously as he questions why Space Racer thinks he's there, explaining that they came to free him, not to fight, and asking why they would have come for any other reason. Space Racer counters, suggesting that it's more likely they came to retrieve his weapon, assuming he had perished long ago. Allen, communicating telepathically with Omni-Man, remarks that Space Racer has a point and asks if he can step in to handle the situation. After a brief pause, Allen steps forward, introducing himself to Space Racer as Allen the Alien, and admitting that he's fought Omni-Man a few times in the past. Allen agrees with Space Racer's suspicion, confirming that they did come to retrieve his gun, thinking he was long dead, but emphasizes that Omni-Man is completely reformed and is now working with the coalition of planets to organize an offensive against the Viltrum Empire. Allen assures Space Racer that Omni-Man is on their side now, asking if Space Racer is on their side as well. Space Racer remains silent, still pointing his gun at them, his expression unreadable. Omni-Man steps in, affirming that Allen's words are true. He's reformed, has turned against the Viltrumites, and is now working to end their reign. Omni-Man expresses deep regret for what he put Space Racer through, pleading with him not to hold his past actions against the Coalition, as they may be the universe's last best hope against the Viltrum Empire. Allen continues, asking Space Racer to accompany them back to the Coalition headquarters, where he can see for himself that they're genuinely fighting the Viltrumites, offering to provide whatever assurances Space Racer needs. Space Racer reflects on his ordeal, noting that he's been buried under rubble for nearly 100 years. Allen acknowledges this, pointing out that his associate has expressed sincere regret for what happened. Space Racer, shifting the conversation, asks if they have any food. Allen assures him they do, asking for a moment to arrange it, and offers Space Racer a taste of food called Kanslok. Space Racer declines the offer with a curt refusal. He then agrees to accompany them to the supposed Coalition stronghold, but warns that his gun will remain aimed at them and any betrayal will lead to their end. Omni-Man, flying alongside Allen as they head back, remarks sarcastically that Space Racer's warning is intimidating, a smile on his face. The group arrives on Talskria, hidden among the towering skyscrapers of the central base of the Coalition of Planets. Thetis, the Coalition's leader, speaks with Allen and Omni-Man, noting that Space Racer remains cautious about the situation, but is reportedly optimistic about working with them. Thetis adds that his medical specialists are examining Space Racer to ensure he's in good physical shape, marveling at his astounding metabolism and stating that he'll be a huge help to their cause. He commends Allen and Omni-Man for their efforts. Allen expresses gratitude to Thetis, explaining that he'll head home while the team assembles for their next mission, asking if they can be ready in 2 days. Thetis confirms he'll alert them as soon as they're ready to go. Omni-Man asks where he should go, and Allen playfully insists that Omni-Man stay at his place, calling him his buddy. Later that night at Allen's place on Talskria, Omni-Man tries to sleep but is kept awake by the sounds of Allen and his partner, Talia, enjoying a rather enthusiastic evening together. Omni-Man, clearly uncomfortable, presses pillows over his ears to block out the noise. Allen steps out of his room to grab a glass of water and notices Omni-Man struggling to rest. He checks in, asking if they're keeping him up. Omni-Man, not wanting to make a fuss, quickly denies it. Allen, relieved, wishes him a good night and heads back to his room, leaving Omni-Man to deal with the racket. Omni-Man and Allen depart for a distant planet, the home of the Ragnar, where the creatures are frozen due to a Viltrumite solar disk blocking their sun. On the planet, Omni-Man cautions that the Ragnar are vicious and they need to be careful, explaining that when the Viltrumites discovered this race of monsters, they sent a few teams to try and destroy them, but the efforts led to disastrous results because these things are indestructible. He adds that he finally came up with the idea of using a solar disk to block their sun, freezing the Ragnar, but warns that if these things were to thaw out while they're here, they're in trouble. Allen, eyeing the ice-covered terrain, asks, with all this ice, "How are we going to find them?" Omni-Man agrees, responding, "You're right," and contacts the Coalition spaceship's bridge with a call of Nolan to bridge, requesting they prepare a team to transport these frozen Ragnar to the cargo hold before they completely thaw out, adding that the only way to find them is by removing the solar disk. The crew responds, asserting that they can handle that on their own, thanking Omni-Man very much before ordering download fire at will, which destroys the solar disk. Omni-Man yells, "No!" in shock, while Allen quickly asks, "What is it?" Omni-Man, frustrated, shouts, "Morons!" Explaining that the ice will be melted in a matter of minutes with this approach. They needed to move the disk, not destroy it completely. He insists they've got to work fast, pointing to a frozen Ragnar and saying we need to get that one up to the ship before it completely thaws out, as they're only going to get one shot at this. "Come on," he urges. Omni-Man then lifts the iced Ragnar and declares he's taking this one up to the ship, telling Allen to see if you can find more, but warns that once they thaw out completely, they're finished, as the Ragnar are too strong to transport. Omni-Man, having just lifted the iced Ragnar, mutters "crap" as the ice cracks and the Ragnar's arm breaks free. The creature fully emerges, towering over Omni-Man, who falls back in shock. Meanwhile, back on the Coalition spaceship, the crew monitoring the situation reports to the captain that the Viltrumite's heart rate has more than doubled, suggesting that they're in trouble. The captain, determined, declares that these creatures may be the thing they need to finally turn the tide against the Viltrumites, stressing that failure is not an option here. He demands a report, asking what is going on down there on the planet. Allen responds to the captain's call, shouting that what's going on is you morons screwed up. This ice is almost completely melted and they're surrounded. He declares the mission a bust, stating he's getting them out of here now. Omni-Man, locked in a struggle with the Ragnar, yells for Allen to go and get out of here now, insisting he can take care of himself. Allen, flying in to assist, offers that he can help Omni-Man. Omni-Man refuses, shouting no. But before he can finish, two Ragnars attack Allen, pinning him down. Omni-Man screams Allen's name in alarm and flies in, punching one of the Ragnars off him. Allen, struggling to hold the other Ragnar away from his face to keep its snapping jaws at bay, grits out that he's got this. Omni-Man, swooping in, counters that no, he doesn't. These things eat Viltrumites alive, and the only reason they're lasting this long is that the Ragnars are still groggy from being frozen. Omni-Man slams into the Ragnar, attacking Allen, ordering him to run now. Go now, he'll catch up. Move! He adds urgently to go fast and don't look back, warning that these things can jump. As Allen takes off, he exclaims, "Whoa, no kidding!" Omni-Man shoves one of the Ragnars far away, and both he and Allen fly out of the planet's atmosphere. Now back in space, Allen, catching his breath, remarks that was quick. "Come on!" Omni-Man, his face contorted with anger, snaps no. If he gets on that ship, he'll rip it in half. Omni-Man and Allen finally make it back to Telskria, the home base of the coalition of planets, battered from their failed Ragnar mission. Inside the coalition headquarters, Omni-Man, visibly bruised and wearing a sling for his broken arm, speaks with Thetis alongside Allen, who's also nursing injuries. Thetis addresses Omni-Man, assuring him that it's not a total loss. They know where the Ragnar are, and they're active again, so they could distract a squad of Viltrumites by sending them there. He adds that he's not completely ruling out the possibility of capturing some to train in some way, promising they'll figure something out, as they're not going to succeed every single time. Thetis acknowledges the same short-tempered blood runs through his veins as well, commending Nolan for showing great restraint out there and apologizing for his people screwing up the mission. Omni-Man, still fuming, mutters best not to bring it up. Allen, equally frustrated, chimes in with a serious, "Seriously." Thetis, looking at their injuries, notes that thankfully there are potential weapons listed in Nolan's books, and a few things he'd like him to look into that Nolan didn't write about, warning that they have a long road ahead of them. Later, on an unnamed planet, Omni-Man and Allen are seen holding sin-like beetles while examining the Klaxus plant. Omni-Man explains that the Klaxus plant is poisonous to Viltrumites. It can't kill them, but it would make them pretty easy to defeat in an otherwise evenly matched fight. He notes the problem as the plant is impossible to keep from growing, needing very little water or sunlight and growing at an insanely rapid rate. To counter this, they infested this planet with these sin-like beetles, which eat the plant faster than it can grow and are impossible to exterminate. He suggests they might be able to extract some of the poison from plant material ingested by the beetles. On the planet Galdaria, Omni-Man and Allen meet with the Galdarians, a peaceful race who confirm their success in fending off the Viltrumite-sponsored Krish invasion. A Galdarian elder speaks, affirming that it is true. They were able to fend off the Viltrumite-sponsored Krish invasion of Galdaria, and there is one that may be of assistance to them. A narrative note from the comics writers interrupts, exclaiming, "Holy crap, he's talking about Tech Jacket. You should totally order that trade paperback, dude," recommending readers check out Tech Jacket's story. At another location, Omni-Man and Allen hover over a spot marked on star maps, searching for a new threat. Omni-Man reveals that their old migration paths came right through this spot on star maps, and if they could catch one of these, it would be a huge help, warning that space sharks are bad news. Over a body of water, Omni-Man places a beacon on the surface, stating that if this thing is still out here, this beacon will detect it, urging, "Let's go." Allen, with a hint of sarcasm, responds, "Yippee!" They're likely tracking a Leviathan, a massive aquatic creature capable of harming Viltrumites, as part of their ongoing mission to find weapons for the Viltrumite War. On the planet Thrall, home of the Thralians, Omni-Man and Allen speak with a Thralian elder about Battle Beast. Omni-Man mentions that they know him as Battle Beast. The Thralian elder responds that he knows of the one they speak of, describing him as their planet's favorite son and their world's protector, who brought them this utopia. He explains that in doing so, Battle Beast became addicted to conflict. Invulnerable and immortal, He left their world in search of conflict worthy of his unique abilities. The Elder admits he has never seen him, noting that there are those among them who do not believe Battle Beast exists, but he prays to live long enough to see him return, a hope shared by all Thralians. At their final stop, Omni-Man and Allen hover over a desolate planet, staring at a pile of skeletons. Omni-Man, looking somber, tells Allen he fears he did his job too well, indicating that during his time with the Viltrum Empire, he likely exterminated the creature they were searching for, a beast that could have been a weapon against the Viltrumites. Back at Allen's place on Telscria, Omni-Man remains on the couch, pretending to sleep while covering his ears as Allen and his girlfriend Talia argue nearby. Allen announces that Omni-Man is asleep, while Talia insists that Omni-Man can sleep through anything and urges Allen to just ask him tomorrow morning when he plans to leave. She expresses frustration that this situation is ridiculous, noting that Omni-Man has been sleeping on their couch for months. Allen responds by explaining that Talia could have just asked him directly instead of starting this tirade, revealing that Omni-Man is moving out next week and admits that their heavy workload has made it difficult for them to find him a place. Talia softens her stance, acknowledging that she had no idea about the situation and agrees by saying okay. The scene then offers another display of Allen's outrageous riz as he asks Talia if they can now go to bed, prompting Talia to giggle as they head off, leaving Omni-Man to suffer through their passionate reunion with a groan. In the Coalition headquarters on Telscria, Thetis welcomes Omni-Man back with a warm greeting, mentioning that he is glad Omni-Man has found a new place and assumes he must be thrilled about it. Thetis adds a light-hearted joke that one should never underestimate the sex drive of a repressed Unapan, causing Omni-Man to respond with a laugh that there is no kidding about that point. After a brief moment of silence, Omni-Man continues, addressing Thetis directly and admitting that he has to be honest with him. He pauses again, noting that since it is just the two of them there, he confesses to having concerns about their situation, adding that there are other potential items of interest, but he fears it won't be enough. Thetis cuts in, insisting that it will be, and invites Omni-Man to come with him. He leads Omni-Man to a secret entry, disclosing that they have Space Racer working with them and managed to extract a diluted sample of Klax's poison from the Syntag beetle. Thetis continues speaking, declaring that the time to strike is now, instructing Omni-Man to go to Earth to get his son and the boy with the Galdarian weapon, along with whoever else he thinks can help them. Thetis adds that they will do their best to organize as many threats to the Viltrumites as they can while Omni-Man is away, and concludes by hinting that there is something he must reveal. With a somber expression, Thetis confesses that he was not entirely unaware of their people's genocide when Omni-Man mentioned it, explaining that he turned his back on his people because he came to see their actions as evil. Inside a Coalition lab, Omni-Man questions the mention of the Scourge virus with a shocked expression, while Thetis lowers his head and confirms that it is an improved strain designed to bypass any developed immunity. Coalition scientists, the same team previously involved with Space Racer, work on a vial of the virus. Thetis adds with a heavy heart that using it could mean suicide for them and potential extinction of their people, but asserts that if he believes their cause is lost, he will not hesitate to use it again, leaving Omni-Man visibly shaken by the gravity of the decision.